Mr. Paradise, Picking Paradise here, doing a follow-up on the beginner lock videos I've been doing to try to help people progress through the belt ranks and get past some of these simple locks. In the past, we've done the Master 140, we've also done like an M1, M5, these Chinese padlocks, Master 530s, Brinks, this has spools in it, these like storage locks, whatever you got, make it use for you. But I want to try to talk to people and try to explain why I do some of the things I do, which doesn't mean that's the correct way, but it's just why I do it. So attacking a lock and the tensioning is key. So I like my pry bars and I like the 50 thousandths. It's the stiffest, so I like to use that if I can. I've got a 40 thousandths if I've got to go lighter, and then I got one skinnier 30 thousandths. I typically don't use these unless the lock just absolutely makes me use them. Sometimes I'll use this, I'll stick it in the bottom of the keyway like this so I can pick off of that. It provides a better surface for me to pick off of sometimes. But we want to pay attention to the key, and we want to pay attention to top of keyway, bottom of keyway, and how we approach that and what's the right thing. So the stiffest thing is going to give you the best feedback. So, you know, if you shove this in here and twist it, then that's pretty stiff. So anything that core does, this is going to do. And you want as much contact with your tension bar with that core as possible, and that's going to give you the biggest feedback. It's going to be real important when you get up to doing spools, and we might try to cover that today as well. Spools and security pins. When you first start picking, people are kind of like, ooh, these security pins, but they're actually easy to pick. So top of keyway tension versus bottom keyway tension. Another thing with the bottom of keyway tension, sometimes you'll stick it in here and you'll get hung up. Like right now, if I were to leave that, sure, I'm prying up on the core this way, but this edge over here is catching on the bottom and the outside of the core, and it's going to bind and it's not going to rotate freely. So even if I have it picked, this is going to prevent me from actually rotating it. Let's talk about approaching the keyway. Like this guy, if we can see it, try to zoom in here. You know, it comes down and then goes over in this way. So you have to kind of pick slightly from the side on this guy, right? And then like the 140, that's a straight up keyway. And then we got the ABUS 7240. Whoa, hello. Can we see the difference in the keyways here? Yep. So this one has like a little crook over here, comes back this way, goes down, comes back over here. So this one, I'll pick off to the side, and then I'll kind of rotate my pick up like this. Now they do have little holes in that wording a little bit, and some have bigger ones than others, but I'll find that binding pin and I'll just kind of deep, 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 and pick it open. So the top of keyway actually doesn't fit well in here, but I get one and I put it in there, and that's what I go with just because it's up here, it's out of the way. If I were to shove something down here, I'm not going to have anywhere to put a pick, you know? So access and feedback, that's what we're trying to do. Now we've got this LOTO, or this is the 911 or 410. I'm not sure which one this one is, but it is not the paracentric keyway. If we can see that keyway. So basically this lock allows me to pick straight up. So if you guys are wanting to get into spools and get into some security pins and learn spools, don't hurt yourself in the beginning and get a paracentric keyway, because they're really difficult. You got to pick up off the side, and it's kind of hard to learn when you're first learning. Once you get it, it's not that difficult. But when you're first learning, you kind of are spoiled and you want to just go, you know, pick straight up and down. You know, picking off to the side is tough. The other thing we want to do is make sure that we're not hitting any of the warding or the other side of the core, because that can give us false feedback. So if we're rubbing up against the warding and the core, then it's going to deaden our feedback on our pick. So we want the right thickness of the pick, not too thin. We want as thick as possible, but we don't want to be touching too many other things inside of the lock, so that way it provides good feedback. So I'm kind of eager to jump into this, but I do want to go ahead and cover that. I think that's enough. Maybe throwing too much content right now, but hey, soak it up, watch a video a couple times, whatever you got to do to remember this stuff. So I'll stop babbling about that and we'll start talking about security pins. And somebody asked me, oh, could you explain security pins and how they work? And it was kind of tough, so I just kind of sent them a link to something that would show this. So that kind of shows you different security pins. They all kind of act similar, you know, serrations. They catch the little serrations, you get a little click, and not so much of a core rotation, but a small little click. The spool pin, you can see how it will actually rotate that core more because that's going to get hung up in there. And the same thing with the mushroom pin. Mushroom pin tends to lay up against the side of the Bible wall flat like this, and this ledge is kind of tough, so you've got to drive that core back to get that up in there. Here is another example that I have of one that I've just printed out. Ooh. Art of Lockpicking actually has a really good read up on that, so if you want to read up on it, then you can read up on that stuff, and it has a good little GIF in there that shows you how these things rotate and what's going on if you need that visual aid. But once you kind of get the concept down of what's going on, then you should be able to attack it fairly easily. So, you know, our pick comes up in here, pushes our key pin up to that driver pin, and now that spool's hung, so we got to let that counter rotate back, and then we'll push it up, and then this is going to fall into an open or a deeper false set. This is why you're getting a false set. So I actually misguided my buddy Jay Darrow. He asked me, oh, I want to get this like false set. Everybody keeps talking about a false set. I was like, get an American, you'll get a false set. Well, I should have said get an A-Bus 7240 or a 911 or a 410 LOTO, because these have only one standard pin and all spools, so you're going to get a false set. The American is it has some serrated pins and some spools as well, so you know you might not get as deep as a false set. So I think I've talked about the tensioning, and we've talked about the not hitting the warding, and we've talked about top of keyway and some security pins. So this is just a Chinese lock. This is an Ace lock here. It's from Ace Hardware. So if you got Ace Hardware in your area and you want to stop by and pick up this lock, then stop by. I think they're like $5. If you can see the bidding on that one, it's actually not that bad. It's up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So we'll pick it real quick and show you what a false set looks like. And yeah, if we got time to get to the other ones, maybe we'll do another one. So let's see. We're going to go 18 thousandths because it's going to give me a lot of room. The 25 seems cramped to me. And we're going to go 50 thousandths, top of keyway. And we'll give us our tension. Another good thing to keep in mind is that you kind of need to pulsate tension sometimes. So let's go in. We're going to try pin 1. Doesn't seem like it's, well, nope, there's nothing on pin 1. I was hitting my tension. So there you go. So I set pin 2, and you kind of seen it fell down into a deeper rotation. And I know this lock, and it's going to give me a couple more false sets. But let's go back to where we were. So here's straight up and down. Now when I turn the core, it's got a little bit of slop, so it turns about that much. So if we reference this top right corner and what we can see in frame, then we'll see once I get that false set what it looks like. And you know, Bosnia Bill and all these other guys, they do much better videos than this, but you know, more content can't hurt anybody, right? Yeah, I overset a pin actually. I'm trying to just get that first pin to set so I can show you that first false set. And this lock has sloppy tolerances, so it requires me to pulsate a little bit to get that first false set. Sometimes it jumps right in there, and sometimes it doesn't. So I'll just reset and try to start over here. And 1. Okay, so there's that false set. So it just took me a little bit of rubbing on that lower key pin, and now it's much deeper than it was in the beginning. You see we're almost covering up that first rivet. So let's go by and find the next binding pin. I touch on 1. 1's giving me counter rotation. As you can see, that's rotating back. So let's just see what happens. I don't want to touch too much of the other wording, and then I want to feather it back. Okay, and now I'm more back to, there we go. Now a deeper false set. I have to tap these pins because the sloppy wording and everything kind of catches or whatever. So now we're into a deeper false set. And 3, give me counter rotation. I just run the pick back in there and I can kind of feel it. And it's like saying, hey, I'm going to turn backwards. And what I do is I apply enough pick pressure, and then I lighten up on pick pressure once I kind of start going back too far because I know it's about to set. And now it's an open. So we saw the false sets in there. And we saw how we go about those security pins. And we're at a 12.5-minute video. So I'm not, this isn't a good lock to pick. We can show you the LOTO real quick. Maybe, I don't know if I'll get an open or not. I don't want to spend that much time on it. This one, I know it requires a little bit of a thinner tension pry bar, and it wants to fit in the top and off to the side. And actually I think it's, I gotta use the longer side of this one. There we go. So now, and it sits off to the side. Now these, if you keep in mind, all the LOTOs, pin 5 is what you kind of got to eventually set. You might set some other ones first, but pin 5 is usually always the serrated standard pin that holds the core in place. And without setting it, there it goes, then you're not gonna get into the spool. So you can see how we got into that false set there. And then we'll find one where it gives us counter rotation. One is giving us some good counter rotation. You see that's not me pulsating, that is my pick pushing up and it wanting to rotate backwards. And there we go, we set that one. Now I'm feeling for the other ones. And it looked like the 5th pin like fell during that, and that's why it just fell back into place. I set it. Some really hard binding ones in here, and I'm not sure what's going on. Seems like maybe the 6th one wants to be set. Oh, I dropped some stuff and overset, I think. Back into that false set. Okay, pin 6 is set, and that's what needed to happen. pin 1, counter rotation, and open. Yeah, so it's the 6th pin. We'll lock that right back before we enter the club that I don't want to be part of. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in, and all this video making is actually pushing me, and just say keep versatile. You know, I've switched up my picking practice, and instead of just running through like all my 1100s or all my A buses, I made these, and it has a variety, so that way I stay sharp and I don't only get spoiled and you know, only know how to pick 1100s really well. So anyway, thanks for tuning in.